So, guys, our first chapter of your English Hornbill session, and the chapter 1 is The Portrait of a Lady. It's a very interesting chapter in which your author is telling her childhood scenarios of his life, which is related to somewhere his grandmother and family. So basically main characters are the two. First one is your author and second one is his grandmother, right? So here in this chapter he has discussed all the scenarios, how his bonding was there with his grandmother, how the feeling, emotions and attachment was made. So let's begin with the chapter summary. Right here I cannot discuss whole the chapter with you because it consists of a number of pages. So here I am preparing revision notes, like something short notes it means for you, so that you get a quick idea of the chapter as well as you also understand the whole story. So here this story is starting with an introduction of Kushwant Singh, who is a prominent Indian writer and columnist. Means he is one of the prominent Indian writer and he also write columns in newspapers, so it is also a columnist. So he has written on various themes and issues, like he is not specified to an area of writing, like he has written for all of the major themes and issues that has been highlighted, right? In this lesson he gave a detailed account of his grandmother who had a long association with him. So in this chapter he has discussed a very detailed information about his grandmother and his childhood memories and his bonding with his grandmother, right? He had intimate relation with her since his childhood. Their friendship was broken when they had to move to city. So basically what happened, he is saying that he has very intimate relation. Intimate relation means very close relation with his grandmother, and he had a very good friendship like bond with her. So this friendship was broken when he moved with his parents to city. Earlier he was living in the village with his grandmother, but after a certain age when his parents got settled in city, so he has to move to city, leaving her grandmother in village. In English schools, science and music did not appeal to her. So after a certain period of time his grandmother also moved to city and started living with them. He was going in English schools, so there he was taught science and music, right? So the science part and the music that he was taught at the school was not very appealable to his grandmother. He didn't like, because the music that he learned at the village school, that was a temple, was far more different from this school English and school music, right? The narrator went abroad for higher studies, so when he completed his schooling he went to abroad in foreign for studies. His arrival after 5 years from abroad was occasion for a celebration. So he went there in abroad, and when he arrived back after 5 years from abroad, so there was a celebration like feeling at home. The old lady tired herself and fell ill. So what happened, the old lady, यानी कि यहाँ पे grandmother की बात हो रही है, so he started preparation for celebration as his grandson was coming back. So he worked very hard and tired herself, and due to his hard work she fell ill. Her death was mourned not only by narrator's family but also by sparrows that she fed regularly in the afternoon. So what happened, when narrator started going to English schools and he was busy with his separate study room and the room of living, so grandmother was very alone at that time. So what she started doing to keep herself busy, like she started feeding sparrows in balcony, right? So what happened, every certain period of time, like for 2 hours in afternoon, what she did, she went to the balcony area where the sparrows were sitting, and she fed them with grains and other stuffs, right? So what happened that when she fell ill, after the narrator returned back due to hard work that she done for celebration of his return to home. So his death period was near. Everybody observed, even narrator's family also observed that her death was near. But not only the human beings, but also the sparrow, the little creatures whom she fed every afternoon, right? The old short and little bent grandmother is clad in white clothes and keep telling the beads of her rosary. So what happened यहाँ पर last line of the first para, it is told how she appeared, how she looked. So she was in a white clothes all the time, and he was busy with the telling beads of her rosary, right? यहाँ पर आपको फर्स्ट देयर वाज अ रिलेशनशिप. यहाँ पर आपको सेकेंड पैरा में it is mentioned about the village scenario. So what happened during their long stay in village, grandmother used to wake up the narrator in morning and accompanied him to school. So what happened, everything was done by grandmother. She waked up narrator early in the morning and she prepared him for the school and also accompanied him to school. She went with him to school. She took care of all his small things and continued her regular prayers and reading of scriptures. So looking after small things, she never discontinued her regular scenarios. Regular जो उनका scenario था, like regular prayers and reading of scripture, she continued that too, along with looking for the smallest need of narrator, right? On the way back home, she fed stray dog with the stale chapatis. So what happened when they were going to the temple area to school? She prepared some of extra chapatis for the dogs which were found on the stray or the street. So street dog के लिए वो stale chapatis बनाती थी, and when they were returning back from school, she used to feed those dogs, right? Circumstances did have a bearing on their relationship between author and his grandmother. So there was a sweet relationship that developed in the village, right? They had a most intimate relationship when they were in the village. So the village relationship between author and his grandmother was very sweet, and they were very, very close to each other. Like every single moment they were by the side of each other, right? Shifting to the city was a turning point as it increased distance between their relationship. Now the author was going to a city school and studying all modern day subjects. So there is a question always asked in your exams, that was a turning point for the relationship of grandmother or the narrator and his grandmother. So you have to say that shifting to city, the movement, their migration to city was the turning point, as author was going to city school and studying all the modern subject, right? So grandmother was upset because she wasn't able to help him with his studies, right? And moreover, there was no teaching of God and scripture. So भगवान और ये जो हमारे हिस्टोरिकल बुक्स होती है लाइक महाभारत एंड रामायण, सो इस तरीके की कोई भी स्टडी उनको स्कूल में नहीं दी जा रही थी. तो दीज वर द रीजन वाई द डिस्टेंस बिटवीन द टू ग्रू सो far. As the year rolled by, they saw less each other. Like the time passed, so with the increasing of his standard, author was busy with his studies. So they grew a distance between each other, and that was the reason they were even not living in a house. They were living in the same house, but they weren't seeing each other for a second also. But their feelings for each other did not change. So यहाँ पर है कि this thing were going worse for them. Still there was no change in their feelings. Like they felt same for each other now even. The grandmother was very strong lady. She was very rigid in her ways. So she did not like the modern ways of city. Like grandmother from his starting life, she has lived in the village, so she was somewhere capable of living in the village, but she was not. The main reason was that she wasn't like the modern ways of life. She led her kind of life and never compromised with her kinds of life. She loved the narrator deeply but never tried to be emotional and sentimental. So what happened? She was a very strong lady in her own ways, but somewhere she was very emotional also. She wasn't like the modern ways of city, and the thing was that she never compromised with her regular schedules of his life, right? She was carrying out his life the way she was carrying earlier in the village. And the main thing which is mentioned is that she loved narrator too much, and she was the only one who was very close to narrator, right? But still she was not showing her emotions and sentimental, as she thought that narrator would be somewhere affected and his life would be affected. Like when someone is very close to us, we don't want that they get negative impact on their lives. Like the grandmother devoted her time in praying, spinning, and feeding sparrows. So when this distance grew, she devoted her time praying and spinning and feeding to sparrows. She did not get disturbed when narrator was leaving for abroad and see him on maintaining her peace and calm. So what happened? She tried to not get disturbed when narrator was leaving for abroad and saw him off maintaining her peace and calm. So she went to airport and she waved him off when he was going, and she was very calm and peace, and she was very strong lady over her emotions. Like after a span of 5 years, the grandmother was there to receive him, and when he was returning, she went to airport to receive him. She celebrated her grandson's homecoming in unusual way by beating drums and singing. So the celebration that she prepared was that she was beating drum and singing in order to celebrate homecoming of his grandson. She had a peaceful end. Everyone, including Sparrow, got grieved at the demise of a bold, religious, practical, responsible, and loving person. So, what happened when she left author and his family? So, even not the family members, but also sparrows were in grief. उनको भी दुख था that such a bold, religious, practical, and responsible as well as loving person has left the place. She was no more in this world, but her memories kept her alive in the heart of narrator. Like she wasn't anymore with narrator as a human, but the memories that they had from past 12 to 15 years, from village to the city life, that was the thing that was always had a special space in heart of narrator. Like so here in last period you can say there is a characteristic stage of how she was. So she was bold lady, religious, practical lady, responsible and loving person. So these are few things which I have highlighted with the separate colors, so you need to focus on them a lot, right? So this was all the chapter in which your narrator has discussed about these things, how strong a woman can be for the positive result of someone he or she loved. Like so the grandmother had controlled his emotion as she was very attached to narrator. Then also she controlled her emotion so that narrator does not get weak and he can carry out his career in a positive manner. And the lady sketch that the narrator has tried to mention here is very strong, how she maintained her life, how she took care, and how she ended her life even is a very account of thoughtful, right? So this is what the whole chapter is about. I hope it is very clear to you, and if it is not, you can ask your doubts in comment section, and stay tuned for the next video. I'll be uploading another chapter part of such a short video in which you will be getting all the contents of the chapter without reading the whole chapter. But the one suggestion that I would give you, that do read the chapter from your NCERT books. There are few keywords which you can use in your answers to make them bold and bright, right? So that's all for today.